Choden, you're going to be teaching on the compassion training at Samiling later this year. Why is it a good idea for people to train in compassion?
I think compassion is a really an important part of training the mind. Mindfulness is very important, very useful, because it brings our attention more fully into the present. But when we come into the present, we encounter a lot of things in our experience that are difficult, painful, unsettling. So I think compassion is a way of bringing a softness, a kindness, a warmth to what we find there. It's a bit like the image of a light. You can shine a light of attention on something. In mindfulness, you shine the light on the mind. But if it's quite like a sharp light, like a neon light, it can maybe not be the best effect. But if there's a sort of warm light, then that has a very different effect on what it lights up in the mind. So I think in that sense, compassion really brings something very important to the practice of awareness, since mindfulness is really about the cultivation of awareness.
Yeah. And what kind of things do you cover on the compassion training?
I think the one thing that's really important that we cover is self-compassion, because a big issue for people is that they criticize themselves and they basically just don't like themselves, and they actually end up attacking themselves. So that is such a big issue for so many people. So one of the number one focuses is on how can we bring kindness to this person we are in here, and that becomes like the basis, starting point for then opening the compassion out to other people. But I think if the number one thing isn't attended to, if we haven't got compassion for ourselves, then the compassion isn't really genuine. It's a bit of an artifice. We're just pretending compassion. But that being said, it's no easy thing to actually cultivate compassion to oneself, because there's such strong patterns against it, contrary to it. But still, I think in our training, we work with it, the process in a very methodical, step-by-step way, and work with self-compassion, then compassion for others. We also work with the evolutionary model, drawing on science and psychology, in which we try to understand the mind, the brain, understand how emotions work. And I think the usefulness of the evolutionary model is that we have a sense that the way our brain has evolved is not our fault, so we can let ourselves off the hook. And these days, science is the modern religion, so if science says it's okay, it's not our fault, then we go along with that. And we also draw on Buddhism too, particularly the Mahayana tradition of Buddhism, and the four immeasurable qualities of loving kindness, joy, equanimity, and compassion. So we work with draw on Buddhism, so a combination of Buddhism and science and psychology.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really what the compassion training is made up of.
And how have you particularly benefited yourself from training in compassion?
I think I've benefited in the sense that I'm more allowing of this messy inner reality I call me, I'm more allowing of it. I don't expect it to be something different. I think many of us have a sense that we should be kind of sorted, and we have a sense that we can't kind of believe that this mind that we experience inwardly is actually the way it is. Actually we think something must be wrong with us and other people are okay. But I think from two important teachers I've had, one is a Buddhist teacher, Rob Nan, who talked about the mess and how important it is to embrace the mess in oneself. And Paul Gilbert, who's a scientist, psychologist, who's really spoken so much about how the brain is actually crazy. And his main message when he goes around the world is telling people, you've got a crazy brain, you didn't design it, it's not your fault, so let yourself off the hook, So I think with these two inputs, I've come to the conclusion that, it's kind of okay to inhabit this inner messy world that I find myself in. Although maybe it doesn't look like that. I've got a very good exterior and persona. I project of being a mindfulness teacher and sorted. But I know myself is not like that. And I think the self-compassion is bringing an acceptance to that and a kindness to that. So I think that's how I found it helpful.